afternoon, Pit Nation. Sorry we were a couple minutes late. Tim and I were just laughing. No matter how early we get here, it seems like something can go wrong and put us a couple minutes late. It seems like every single week. So our apologies for that. I think we got it under control. Before we get started on the nuclear cell today, I want to just throw this out here. A couple of people have said that the sound quality gets a little bit muffled because of the ball return. If you can hear the ball return spinning, and that ends up being a problem, I apologize. We ended up moving to a different pair, but you know, it is what it is. It is going to be a noise situation in the background. So I guess if you missed something that I said, please throw it in the comments and say, hey, listen, I missed that, or I could clarify that, or something like that, okay? Today, we're going to throw the nuclear cell. I like to think that these videos will start to get shorter in duration. My goal would be to get them down to about a half an hour, but all of that will depend on your questions and comments. But we'll do the best we can. I decided to bring in another asymmetric quicker response ball, and so I brought in the astrophysics. And when I happened to look at the layout, you all know that I put my pins, the first time I drill a ball, I put the pin right up here above the fingers, pretty much on every single ball. But as I looked at the angle, and again, I don't know what the angle is, it's not that big of a deal to me. I just throw it down the lane and I look. It looks like the degrees, this one shifted over just a little bit, maybe another, I don't know, 5, maybe 7 degrees, but it should be relatively similar layouts. Definitely the pin to axis is right at about 5 inches for me. Right here in my bridge is 5 inches, my axis being over here. My axis, in case some of you want to know, is 5 1/4 over by 1 inch up. 5 1/4 over by 1 inch up is, and that's been my axis for years. Believe it or not, it hasn't changed since Rick Benoit first took the axis when I was out on tour. He used to have little pieces of 1 inch bowler's tape, the white bowler's tape, on our little display back there where he drilled balls, and every single person that was on our staff back then, he had their axis point on there. It's funny, it hasn't changed in, what, almost 20 years now. So, anyways, what were we bowling on? We had the sweeper last Friday night here at the bowling center. We were closed for Labor Day weekend, so there wasn't any bowling since then. A huge shout out to Chuck Jagodzinski. This guy, what an animal, in the display that he put on the other night. He used the nuclear cell, and gosh, what was it? He started out the sweeper with 259, and then he bowled 199, and then he went over into the rebuy bracket, and he went 250, 280, 270, shot 820, and then he made it to the casters round, and he shot 250, 270 in the casters round, and then in the title match, we have that title match up on the Pit Nation page here. You can go watch that from the sweepers. But he shot 300, and he used a nuclear cell the whole time, and it looked unbelievable. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to simulate what he was doing. I certainly don't throw it like Chuck. He's more down and in, higher speed, and I don't have the layout of what he had. I'm not sure that that's a huge factor. But it's also important to note that right before he came and bowled the sweeper, so about a week ago, right before the no, it wasn't a week ago. He said it was right before the shutdown. He shot like 860 or something with the nuclear cell. So he's having, what was it? Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to misstate that by 15 pins. 883 he had for his 3 games, which is sickening. So he loves the nuclear cell. I have seen a number of people that have thrown the nuclear cell, I've used it a little bit in a couple of these recent weekend tournaments. I only drilled mine a couple weeks ago, but I have thrown it and I've used it, and I'm still learning more about it. But there are some people that absolutely love it, and then there's others that are still trying to learn it. I think I fall into that category. But I'm going to try and throw it very similar to what Chuck was doing. He was playing basically right down second arrow. I might have to be in around 12 to 13, but throwing it a little on the firm side, and we'll throw it, and then we'll compare it to the actual cadence. Okay? So let's just start throwing shots. Go from there. This is left over from the sweeper the other night, and this particular pattern had probably 6 games on it, maybe 7 games on this particular lane of actual games. Not double, 3-man, 7 games, just 7 actual full games were bowled. So probably getting into, we would call right in the middle of the blend. You know, in Bowl U we talk about the thresh is right when the pattern is applied. The blend is usually in tournaments, we usually figure that as between, you know, game 2 to game 4, maybe game 5. That's the blend, the end of the pattern getting blended out. And then once that lateral definition really starts showing itself and there becomes a lot more lateral friction, we all know that is the burn. That's usually in the later games. So this is probably right in the middle of the blend phase of the transition of what we're talking about, all right? So I'll try to get lined up. I'll start out playing around 12, see if I can do what Chuck was doing. I will be on the faster side, a little lower red rate. Let's see how this looks. That really wasn't, I felt like I was going to fall over on that shot. I think I talked too much before I threw that shot. I got a little lightheaded when I stopped. I got to catch my breath here and make a better shot.
Follow through was nothing like Chuck's either.
Yeah, I don't even want to try to throw it like Chuck. And you know what, it's funny because some people were watching that finals match, and some people texted me and said, you know, how is he able to stand up? Chuck has looked that way his entire career that I know of, but Chuck Jagodzinski, you want to talk about somebody that can repeat shots? He looks that way, and he looks the same way every shot, but man, does he repeat shots. He's got a lot of honest scores, and certainly one of the better down and in bowlers from here in Buffalo. All right. See if I can throw that one a little bit better. I'm standing on 10, looking at 12, okay? That one checked a little bit in the front. I'm going to put my glasses on. Forgot. Oh, that's better. Still standing on 10, looking at 12. I'm going to throw just a little faster. I'm going to get a little bit more behind it, okay? So stabilizing the axis a little bit more. That one was a little off balance, but that was pretty good going down the lane. Yeah, I was really anchored in on that power shot. Standing on 10, looking at 12. I think that stabilizing the axis really made it look pretty good, so we'll try that again. That was good. Now Chuck was playing a little bit farther to the right. Josh, you recorded that match. Where was he tossing the arrows about? Right around 8, 9, 10, I think. So that would make sense. I'd have to be a little bit inside of where his laydown was. Now this pattern, Bourbon Street, was 7-1 to start, and the definition on the original graph is right at around, 10, 11, right in there. Which makes sense. There should be holes. If I cross the arrows here around 13 or 14, it should make sense because there's quite a bit of holes down range. So as long as I get it off my hand with enough speed here. I caught that one. And I caught that one a little bit more, and it got a little to the right. That one actually rolled out a little bit. It was kind of used up when it got down to the pin. Hence the reason we deflected and left that 10 pin. That was really a real weak, lazy 10. But I would kind of expect that. Because it saw, when if you're using a quicker response time ball, and that ball sees friction earlier on the lane, it's really tough to be able to get that ball to hit because the response time wants to stabilize that action so fast, and thus it didn't have anything with the pin. So I'm going to try to shoot on this one, and I want to try to think about if I miss left, okay? That one I missed right, it rolled out. I'm going to try to see if I miss left, if there's holes, and then that'll help maintain that rotation and make it hit a little better. Definitely missed in. Yeah, it really looks good for Chuck, and Chuck, if you do watch this, I'm not sure if you do or not, but what a performance. I end up, when I run the sweepers, I watch and a lot of the bowlers from around here. We have still some great bowlers here in Buffalo that throw it great. And, obviously there's some high scores from one game to the next. And you would expect that, but I got to tell you, to have that many games of that high scores, it was just talk about matching up. And the thing is he didn't look like that he got, nervous or got lax or anything. I mean, he was going rapid fire, just getting up there and throwing strikes. It was almost like he was pressing rewind and then play, and then rewind and play. Every shot was just, it really was. It was all bombs he was throwing. Let me throw another one. And then I'll migrate a little left, and then we'll compare it to the Astro, okay? That's pretty good. That was a pretty good shot there. I hope you saw the difference in that shot. That was more online. I probably crossed the arrows around 13 on that one. But that one really came off my hand. I didn't really catch that one. And that was how Chuck's ball was hit. Now if I move to the right, you would expect there to be a little more friction there. So I'll move 5 to the right. I'm shooting on 5. And now I'm going to look at 8. Okay? This might be a little too much friction for me to be able to use this ball here. See if I can make it mad. I'll throw the identical shot. Identical shot as I just threw physically. And that was pretty good execution relative to what I just did from 5 and 5 farther left. And you saw that that ball really checked and went through the nose. What I can do is I'll try to get lined up from there. I feel like there's quite a few people that talk that want to see these balls, when you go down and in. But I'm going to have to throw this a lot faster from right there just to deal with the friction. So staying on 5, looking at 8. And a little faster. Oh, I thought I was going to get it. But that was pretty fast for me. If I was bowling in a tournament, I probably wouldn't play there. The sound has been sounding bad. We're having our internet looked at.
I don't think it's anything to do with that. I'm not on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I'm using my data. It might be the ball return.
You can try. We'll try, guys.
Yeah. It's just the sound from the ball return. Is all it is, guys.
Yeah, no, that's what we said. But somebody was saying last week all they could really hear was the ball return, so we moved over to this pair.
Maybe because of the air conditioning keep running through the building and the air moving.
Yeah, I don't really know.
I'd be surprised if it was that.
It could be so muffled. Maybe if I talk more slowly.
It's just the sound from that. I don't know.
You can hear it.
All right, I'm going to move left. Okay. I'm going to move 5 and 3 left from the original position. I was standing 10, looking 12. And I'm standing 15, looking 15 for me. And I will be sliding. If I stand on 15, I'll be at about 27 when I get to the arrow, or when I get to the foul line. Okay? I drift about 13 boards left. Many of you already know that. But that looks pretty good. All right. 15, 15. That's a pretty good shot, too. You would think, being quicker response time ball, or a cover for that matter, you would think you should be able to open your angles up and really get this to get up there through the pins. I know, shout out to Jeff Fair. Jeff Fair won the Ohio State Masters tournament, I think last weekend, and he had a picture of the nuclear cell. So there's another success story with the nuclear cell. Re-wrap this. I think the reason that left a 10 pin, even though that was a quality shot, that one looked like it got a little forward down lane. Didn't really maintain that migration smooth. It got down there and then went like this, and then deflected as it went through the pin. Let's see if I can delay that a little bit, just with my hand. Yeah, I delayed that one all right. That was quality execution. No, that was pretty bad. Well, I just did. I just moved in, and I threw a bad shot. Let me see if I can throw a good shot and delay that quick motion a little bit if I can. Then we'll throw the Astro, okay? Definitely better. So all I did to delay that a little bit, felt like I was going to try to hit that one a little bit more with my ring finger. I didn't really catch it as much. And that helps delay, or it makes that distance that it takes to migrate just a little bit longer. Not distance down the lane, but from where it sees friction as to how it migrates precession-wise. You know, we need that to be a controllable distance. We need that to be smooth. Any ball that snaps or reacts too sharply, yeah, you can strike with that ball, but it's going to be tough to control transition with that type of motion. That's not good ball motion. That's why some of you in your leagues, when you start out with these quicker response balls, yeah, you get matched up. You start out with the first 5 or 6 strikes in a row, and by the time you get to the 10th frame, you got a 2-pin, and then you go through the face for a big 4, and then your second game, you struggle getting out of the gate, and then you change balls, whoop, and then you find it again. Just because those quicker response balls are real sensitive to that motion. You want to have a smooth ball motion front to back. the lateral change of direction, you know, if you're laying the camera down on the lane, it should look like wherever you lay the ball down, the ball goes out like this and migrates back smooth. It shouldn't look like it goes out and makes a jump like that. It just shouldn't, okay? All right, astrophysics. Now, I've used this astrophysics a fair amount. So I would say there's probably, probably close to 100 games on this through the last year that I've had it. And when this looks good, it looks great. As far as being a ball that's in my core arsenal, I don't think this ball has really made it into my core arsenal. In this space where this fits, the core arsenal balls that I have are like a phase 3, an idle curl, that type of ball. Even though those are symmetrical balls, it's just that those look good for a lot longer for me than this ball. But when this ball looks good on the lane, yeah, I've gotten a lot of pings with it. Okay, so there is a fair amount of oil in this ball. It has been roughly hit, very lightly hit, I should say, lightly hit with 2000 a couple of times through the time that I've had it. So the surface isn't out of the box like this nuclear cell is. So just take that into account when you watch this. All right, we'll move back to the right. Standing on 10, looking at 12. I'll try to throw the same shot that I threw with the nuclear cell. That looks pretty good. Response time wise, that looks a little smoother for me, so a little slower than the nuclear cell, but that's what you would expect. You've got oil in the cover. It's been glazed a couple times with Avalon, so that does smoothen it out a little bit. Certainly not slow response time, and I wouldn't even really give this all the way down to a medium. I would say this is more of a medium to medium quick response time for me, which then puts that nuclear cell to like a medium quick, just a couple notches above on the response time check. So that same shot again. Yeah, that one checked off the front, but then laid there down the lane. I thought that was good. Looked high, but it didn't. So again, that's the oil that's gotten in these cores and then sat around all summer long. Because I've had this ball for probably at least a year. It's a 2019, so yeah, I've had it about a year. All right, let me move in 15. I'll try to throw that same shot as I threw with the nuclear cell when I was from in here. Remember, I tried to delay that response time or the migration a little bit. I'll try that same shot here. That was definitely smoother than this. It looks a little stronger, doesn't it? I don't know what makes it be stronger. Could be because it's not quite as shiny. So maybe it's even a little bit. I'll go back and forth now. One shot to the net, back and forth. Yeah, I would say that's cleaner cover, but you could see that's quicker response time. When that one migrated, you know, that one was going down like this and then made its move and really got forward pretty easy. Throw the same shot with this. I don't know if you can see this on the tape because it's so dark. If I got to throw some pieces of tape on here so you can see it, I can do that for you. Here, let me wipe this off so we're comparing properly. shocked now that I'm seeing it. You know, this is the first time that I've thrown these two balls side by side, so this is painful for me as well. And this is a lot of what I do when I practice. A lot of people say, you know, how often do you practice? I don't practice that much, you know, if ever. But when I do, I like to try to have some of the newer balls that I've drilled, or the more recent balls that I've drilled. Sometimes they're not brand new. Like I drilled a phase 2 just a couple weeks ago. And I came out, but I like throwing a fresh cover ball right up against a ball that I know. So I know this ball, and I use this ball a lot, so I'll get lined up with this ball, and then I'll really pay attention to what it feels like coming off my hand, what my speed, rev rate is, launch angles. I'm really trying to feel that, and then I take the fresh ball that I just drilled and try to throw that identical shot, so I can compare the shape that ball yields relative to the ball that I know. And it takes a lot more than just one shot to monitor that. You know, you really got to watch. I was telling Rick Benoit this one day, I was driving home from a tournament, and I bowled really well. And the one thing I said to Rick was, I said, yeah, I was, as the tournament went on, it was actually the regional that I just, the senior regional that I was fortunate enough to just win like 2 or 3 weeks ago. As the tournament started, I really wasn't throwing it that good physically. But I felt mentally sharp. I mean, I hadn't bowled in a while, so it was pretty easy to be mentally fresh. But as the tournament went on, it wasn't even physical or mental that for me was the determining factor. It was the visual. I said to Rick, I felt like I was visually sharp. A lot of people talk about physical and mental, but the recognition skills that you must have now in today's environment. So, you know, and I bring that up, yeah, it's good to be physically sharp. It's even better to be mentally sharp. But I think, for a lot of reasons, the most important of the three is to be visually sharp. If you're not gaining good information from that previous shot, it doesn't matter if you're mentally sharp. Now, some would argue, well, isn't being mentally sharp and being visually sharp the same thing? No, it's not. Knowing what good ball motion is, knowing what to watch for, is a lot different than just being in a good frame of mind. And don't get me wrong, it's important. You have to be in a good frame of mind. But, you know, being mentally sharp and visually sharp are two very distinctly different things. And Rick, if you're watching, if you want to throw a comment on about that, recognition skills are an absolute lost art in our bowling world now. You've heard me say many times, and people laugh and chuckle, and they give me a hard time, but it's really the truth. The favorite ball of mine is not an actual object. It's my eyeball. Because I need to be seeing what's going on so that I can make good choices, good mental choices, good strategic choices, and then am I physically sharp enough to implement what I'm choosing to do strategically. And the only way you can make good strategic choices is you have to be gaining good information by watching what's going on. Okay? So, any questions? I think that's really good for today. That was a good little, how long we've been going? That's good. That's just me.
About a half hour.
Okay. So, next week, this is what we're going to do next week. For those of you that want to join in and tune in, I just received yesterday in the mail, I received the Rubicon. And all the Storm staff guys, the Rotogrip staff guys, I saw it go down the lane a couple times at that senior regional. Brian Kretzer was throwing it, and Timmy Mack was throwing it a couple weeks ago, and nothing but great things to say about the Rubicon. It's a Rotogrip ball, so listen, I'm going to punch up one of those, and we're going to compare it, And I want you to be ready. Let's all come with questions and comments, because that seems to be the ball that is out there and really turning a lot of heads right now, okay? Today was about the nuclear cell. I think it's pretty obvious as to where it fits response time-wise. You know, it's going to be on the quicker side, depending on the layout that you put on. You could probably put a lower pin in it to smoothen it out a little bit. But for as forward as it gets off that end of that pattern, you've got to be careful. You don't want it to be too smooth, because then it'll deflect too much. And you saw that happen a couple times, okay? All right, so see you next week. We'll be doing the Rubicon. Take care. Have a great week.